that motivate you a bit more than most, like any other champ?
I'm motivated, I'm self-motivated, and I for sure want to crack at that belt. I for sure want to crack at that 70-pound belt to go for the Triple Crown.
Conor McGregor just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through the entire MMA world. And this isn't just another one of his typical Twitter rants. The Irish superstar is reportedly setting his sights on Islam Makhachev for the welterweight title. And if this fight happens, we're looking at one of the most explosive matchups in UFC history. This isn't just about McGregor wanting another belt to add to his collection. This is personal. This is about unfinished business with the entire Dagestani camp that goes back to that infamous bus attack, the Khabib rivalry, and years of bad blood that never really got settled. McGregor is calling it a good scrap, but anyone who's been following this sport knows there's way more beneath the surface. He's chasing that elusive Triple Crown, aiming to become champion in a third weight class, something that would cement his legacy as the greatest crossover star the sport has ever seen. The timing couldn't be more perfect either, with McGregor's star power at an all-time high and the welterweight division desperately needing a marquee fight that can capture mainstream attention.
Motivated, I'm self-motivated, and I for sure want to crack at that belt. I for sure want to crack at that 70-pound belt to go for the Triple Crown.
And what a fight that would be, you and Islam. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it, after all these years?
Good scrap. Southpaw. It was a good performance out of him, and fair play to him. He had the courage to do it, to go up. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. Let's see what happens. Let's get back in the...
But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Islam Makhachev isn't just playing along with McGregor's games. The lightweight champion has made it crystal clear that he harbors a deep, personal dislike for the Irishman, and it's not just competitive rivalry we're talking about here. This is the same animosity his mentor Khabib famously held, passed down like a family grudge that's been simmering for years. Makhachev didn't just stop at expressing his dislike either. He openly questioned whether McGregor will ever truly compete at the highest level again, essentially calling him washed up and irrelevant. But the most brutal part, he made it clear that McGregor isn't welcome in the Dagestani fighting community, period. These aren't just trash talk soundbites for the cameras. When Makhachev speaks, there's a cold, calculated intensity behind his words that suggests this fight would be about much more than championship gold. The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife, and that's exactly what makes this potential clash so compelling. We're not just looking at a title fight here. We're looking at a cultural collision that could define both fighters' legacies.
McGregor? No, I don't think. Too much drunk, too much marijuana.
What if he came to Dagestan and you trained him? Could you get him right?
Who?
McGregor.
That guy's not stepping foot in there. He's not going
Not
there.
allowed.
Could you guys fix him?
No.
Too far, too gone?
He's never gonna come to Dagestan, and we're not friends. We don't want...
Now listen to this part, because the welterweight division politics are getting absolutely insane. Ian Machado Gary is taking a completely different stance when it comes to potential matchups, and he's not holding back his opinions about who deserves what. He's explicitly shot down any talk of Islam Makhachev facing Kamaru Usman, and the way he's dismissing the former champion is borderline disrespectful. Gary is calling Usman effectively irrelevant in the current title picture, pointing out that the former pound-for-pound king has secured only a single victory in his recent run. To Gary, any conversation suggesting Usman deserves a title shot right now is complete rubbish, and he's not afraid to say it publicly. This isn't just young fighter confidence talking. This is a calculated move by someone who sees an opportunity to position himself as the next big thing in the division. Gary knows that by dismissing established names like Usman, he's creating controversy and putting himself in the conversation. The rapidly shifting landscape of the welterweight division means that yesterday's champions can become today's afterthoughts faster than anyone expects, and Gary is betting that his time is now.
Scream and shout and fight anyone in the world. That fight's not happening. Kamaru Usman is irrelevant. He's had one win since 2021. He's the last one down the list who deserves a title shot. The fact that we're even mentioning his name amongst this title contention is bollocks. He's nowhere near the top. He had one win over a guy who's had nearly double digits lost in the UFC and Joaquin Buckley.
However, renowned MMA journalist Ariel Helwani, who's been covering this sport longer than most fighters have been competing, readily admits that Ian Machado Gary has a point about his recent performances. Helwani concedes that Gary has outshone Kamaru Usman in terms of activity and momentum, and absolutely merits a significant opportunity in the welterweight division. What's impressive about Gary isn't just his skill set, but his incredible work ethic and growing influence within the UFC. Helwani highlighted Gary's busy schedule, pointing out his impressive record of 3 fights over the past year alone, with one of those being taken on extremely short notice when other fighters were making excuses. That kind of activity doesn't go unnoticed by UFC matchmakers, especially when you're winning those fights in spectacular fashion. With Gary currently set to face Carlos Prates, and potentially meeting former champion Belal Muhammad after that, Helwani believes Gary's consistent activity and elite performances make him the man to beat in the division. But here's the kicker. All this momentum could be derailed if the McGregor-Makhachev fight actually happens, because that kind of star power tends to overshadow everything else happening in the division.
I would say Prates. I still think maybe another fight to really kind of... I feel like he's done so much in such a short time. It wasn't enough to let that ripple effect really touch the masses all over the world. But I would say Carlos Prates right now. I like everything I'm seeing from him. His willingness, his excitement to go out there and compete and fight. Even if he loses, it's like, okay, I have to fix that and I'll come back. Like, that's what I love to see. And I think that's what Dana and the company and Hunter and these guys love, is these guys like that. So I love Prates. Morales too is also impressive. You know, no hate on these guys. I love what these guys are doing.
And get this, Carlos Prates himself isn't entirely convinced that Kamaru Usman deserves an immediate title shot, despite acknowledging Usman's incredible legacy. While Prates is quick to praise Usman as one of the division's all-time greats and understands why the UFC might still have their eye on him for marquee fights, he's also pointing out a critical detail that everyone seems to be ignoring. Usman currently holds the 9th spot in the rankings, which is a far cry from his former position as the undisputed king of the division. Prates states quite clearly that while he deeply respects everything Usman has achieved throughout his illustrious career, he would personally feel disappointed if Usman leapfrogged more active, higher-ranked contenders to receive the next title shot. It's a complex situation that highlights the tension between merit-based matchmaking and star power in the modern UFC. But here's where it gets even more interesting. In a surprising turn of events, Kamaru Usman himself is actually championing Carlos Prates for the next title shot. Usman didn't just offer some generic endorsement either. He specifically praised Prates' unwavering mentality, that relentless drive to compete regardless of the circumstances, and how he consistently remains ready to fight no matter what obstacles are thrown his way. Usman recognizes that Prates embodies exactly the type of tenacious attitude the UFC truly values, especially when you consider his rapid rise and impressive achievements since joining the promotion. But wait, it gets even more complicated. Sean Brady, another legitimate contender in the welterweight division, strongly believes that Kamaru Usman is actually the least deserving of a title shot right now among all the top contenders. Brady went a step further and made some serious accusations, highlighting what he perceives as potential UFC favoritism stemming from shared management relationships between fighters and the promotion. That's a huge allegation that speaks to deeper concerns about fair play and transparent matchmaking in the sport. Instead of Usman, Brady is pushing hard for Belal Muhammad to get the next opportunity, emphasizing Muhammad's unblemished recent record and his established position as the #1 contender. Brady even pointed to Muhammad's past victory over himself as further proof of why the former champion deserves his shot. Meanwhile, Ali Abdelaziz, the influential manager who represents Islam Makhachev among other top fighters, has revealed some fascinating behind-the-scenes details about recent UFC matchmaking discussions. According to Abdelaziz, the UFC had indeed explored the possibility of a massive fight between Makhachev and either Usman or Gary for a major upcoming card. The promotion reached out on January 26th, specifically inquiring about a possible main event slot for Makhachev, showing just how serious they were about making something happen. But here's what's really interesting. Islam considered the proposition, but ultimately decided against such a quick return to the octagon, prioritizing a more appropriate timeline for his next title defense rather than rushing into another fight. Hold up, because we need to talk about what's happening in the lightweight division, and it's absolutely chaotic right now. The UFC 344 card is going to feature a massive clash between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight title. And this fight exists purely because undisputed champion Ilia Topuria is currently unavailable. The stakes couldn't be higher for both men. Whoever wins this electrifying matchup earns a guaranteed shot at the undisputed title when Topuria returns. But here's where the controversy really starts heating up. A huge segment of hardcore fans believes that Arman Tsarukyan was absolutely robbed of this opportunity, despite having arguably the best credentials of anyone in the division. The Armenian fighter has been on a tear, defeating top contender after top contender, and many believe his resume speaks for itself. However, Dana White stands absolutely firm on his decision to pass over Tsarukyan for this interim title fight. While White acknowledges Tsarukyan as a legitimate top challenger, he's made it clear that the fighter won't get an immediate title shot, citing a specific incident that likely involved Tsarukyan turning down a short-notice fight or some other behind-the-scenes issue. White's message is crystal clear: title shots aren't just handed out based on rankings alone. They have to be earned through the right combination of skill, timing, and willingness to play ball with the promotion's needs. Now here's where the psychology gets really interesting. Justin Gaethje himself has expressed genuine empathy for Arman Tsarukyan missing out on this title opportunity, even going so far as to describe Tsarukyan as a good problem to have in the division. Coming from a fighter of Gaethje's caliber and experience, that's actually a significant compliment for someone who's technically his rival for title contention. Gaethje openly admitted that the disappointment of being passed over for a title shot is incredibly difficult for any fighter to handle, speaking from his own experience of waiting for opportunities that sometimes never come. Yet he expressed confidence that Tsarukyan, given his undeniable talent and relentless work ethic, will ultimately receive his rightful chance to compete for championship gold. It's the perspective of a seasoned veteran who understands the harsh realities and political complexities of this sport, while still maintaining hope that deserving contenders eventually get their due. But Gaethje is also clearly fired up for what represents his second interim title opportunity, and he's viewing this fight as his direct path back to an undisputed title shot against Topuria. He's embracing his role as the potential spoiler once again, much like he famously did when he disrupted the long-awaited Khabib versus Tony Ferguson narrative with his stunning victory to claim interim gold. Here's the kicker, though. Gaethje is openly acknowledging that his legendary MMA career is winding down, but that's not making him fight any less aggressively. If anything, it's having the opposite effect. He's determined to leave absolutely everything inside the octagon until the very last moment of his career, pushing his body and spirit to their absolute limits every single time he competes. His approach remains focused on one fight at a time, but with the intensity of someone who knows his window for championship glory is rapidly closing. Meanwhile, Paddy Pimblett has been absolutely merciless in his criticism of Arman Tsarukyan, fully supporting the UFC's decision to pass over the Armenian fighter for this interim title shot. Pimblett hasn't held back in his assessment, directly criticizing Tsarukyan's recent performances, particularly pointing to his close call against Matthews Gamrot and what Pimblett considers a less-than-dominant showing against Dan Hooker. He's even suggesting that Tsarukyan has benefited from some questionable decision victories that many observers still debate. More importantly, Pimblett has called out what he describes as Tsarukyan's hesitancy when it comes to accepting certain fights, implying that the fighter has made excuses or shown reluctance when opportunities were presented. In Pimblett's view, these factors completely justify the UFC's choice to go with him and Gaethje instead. But let me tell you something, the stylistic breakdown of this Pimblett versus Gaethje fight is absolutely fascinating from a technical standpoint. Most analysts agree that Gaethje likely holds a decisive advantage if this bout remains primarily a striking affair, where his devastating knockout power and those brutal leg kicks that have ended so many careers can take center stage. The man's ability to chop down opponents with those low kicks is legendary, and his boxing has only gotten more refined over the years. Conversely, Pimblett's path to victory likely runs through getting this fight to the ground, where his Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills and submission threats become major factors. Even experienced analysts like Merab Dvalishvili have admitted it's genuinely challenging to predict how this stylistic clash will unfold, which makes it such compelling viewing. However, Dvalishvili also made some bold predictions about what happens after this interim title fight. The bantamweight contender firmly believes that neither Pimblet nor Gietch possesses the tools necessary to defeat Ilia Topuria when he returns to defend his undisputed title. According to Dvalishvili, Topuria represents a complete champion with elite striking, solid wrestling, and dangerous submission skills. Essentially a fighter without any glaring weaknesses that either interim title challenger could exploit. And get this, Tony Ferguson, the former interim champion who knows a thing or two about the mental side of title fights, is backing Paddy Pimblett to defeat Justin Gietch. Ferguson's reasoning is fascinating because it's based more on psychology than pure fighting ability. He believes that Gietch might harbor some subconscious reluctance about pursuing another interim title, having already experienced the frustration of holding temporary gold while waiting for unification fights that don't always materialize on the timeline you want. Ferguson senses that both fighters have vulnerabilities, but he thinks the mental and emotional aspects could be absolutely critical in determining the outcome. Specifically, he believes Gietch's accumulated frustration from previous title shot disappointments could significantly impact his performance, potentially giving Pimblett a crucial psychological edge going into the fight. Ferguson sees Pimblett as the hungrier, more desperate fighter, someone who's getting his first real shot at championship-level competition and will fight like his life depends on it. In contrast, he views Gietch as someone who's been through the championship heartbreak before and might not have that same desperate edge that often makes the difference in these high-pressure situations. Now listen to this, because we're getting some serious criticism from respected veterans about how the UFC is handling these title shot decisions. Matt Brown, a longtime fighter known for his brutally honest opinions, has expressed strong displeasure with the decision to grant Pimblett this interim title fight over Arman Tsarukyan. Brown describes this choice as deeply disappointing and believes it reveals the extensive, almost unchecked power that UFC leadership wields over title opportunities and official rankings. From his perspective, this kind of concentrated control is fundamentally unhealthy for the sport's long-term integrity and competitive balance. He argues that Tsarukyan, based purely on merit and recent performances, was far more deserving of this opportunity. But Brown's criticism goes deeper than just this single matchmaking decision. He's challenging what he sees as a dangerous trend in the UFC's current philosophy, prioritizing short-term pay-per-view sales and immediate buzz over the kind of meritocracy that builds sustainable, long-term growth for the sport. Brown fears that when genuine skill-based competitors like Tsarukyan consistently get overlooked in favor of fighters who generate more social media attention, it damages the sport's credibility and competitive integrity. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Michael Bisping, the former middleweight champion who's now one of the sport's most respected analysts, sees this Pimblett versus Gietch matchup as genuinely competitive despite the controversy surrounding how we got here. Bisping points out that Gietch, even at 36 years old, remains an explosive and dangerous force with elite wrestling credentials, formidable striking, and those legendary leg kicks that have changed the trajectory of so many fights. Importantly, Bisping doesn't believe Gietch's brutal knockout loss to Max Holloway represents any kind of permanent decline. Sometimes great fighters just run into perfect shots from other elite competitors. When it comes to Pimblett, Bisping acknowledges the Liverpool fighter's unbeaten UFC streak and considers him a legitimate threat, not just some social media creation who got lucky with matchmaking. However, Bisping predicts that Pimblett will need to use intelligent movement and avoid standing directly in front of Gietch, who possesses genuine knockout power in both his hands and feet. The key for Pimblett will be implementing a smart game plan rather than trying to prove his toughness by engaging in the kind of violent exchanges that Ferguson thrives in. But wait, because Renato Moicano just dropped some harsh truth about this whole situation that's got everyone talking. The Brazilian fighter is absolutely incredulous that Paddy Pimblett is receiving an interim title shot without having defeated a single top 15 ranked contender in the lightweight division. Moicano calls this decision fundamentally unjust and points out that Pimblett's recent victories have primarily come against opponents with questionable rankings or even losing records, specifically mentioning Bobby Green as an example. His core argument cuts straight to the heart of what many hardcore fans are feeling. How do these victories against this caliber of opposition legitimately translate into a direct title opportunity that bypasses more deserving contenders who have been grinding against elite competition? It's a question that challenges the entire concept of meritocracy in modern MMA, and Moa Khan isn't afraid to call out what he sees as a system that rewards popularity over pure fighting credentials. The implications go far beyond just this one fight. If fighters can get title shots based more on their ability to generate social media buzz than their ability to defeat elite opposition, what does that mean for the future of competitive integrity in the sport? So there you have it. The lightweight and welterweight divisions are in complete chaos, with deserving contenders getting overlooked controversial matchmaking decisions, creating massive debate, and some of the biggest names in the sport positioning themselves for legacy-defining fights. Whether it's McGregor chasing Makhachev for that triple crown, Pimblett getting a shot that many believe should have gone to Tsarakian, or established veterans like Usman trying to work their way back into title contention, we're witnessing a pivotal moment that could reshape both divisions for years to come. The real question is whether the UFC's current approach of prioritizing entertainment value over pure merit will ultimately help or hurt the sport's long-term credibility. What do you think? Should title shots be based strictly on rankings and recent wins? Or is star power and entertainment value a legitimate factor in championship matchmaking?